Hey everybody. So today's Tantra is with just me, Crystal, who is a new streamer on Twitch. She's getting started, and the Tantra sort of starts out with us talking about content creation. And I think that this Tantra is a really, really good example of how when you have some sort of issue going on in your life, it sort of like spills into everything that you're doing, because Crystal has this issue where like basically there's just sort of like there's just a lot of like doubt and struggle like going on in her head at all time that manifests as like sort of like little like voices like, you know, like, oh, like you shouldn't have done that, oh, like this was a bad idea, oh, you shouldn't have done that. And it sort of affects every area of her life. And so until you actually sort of like address like the root of the problem, the entire thing is gonna be a struggle. So I hope you enjoy the Tantra, and here we go. Hey Crystal, welcome in.
Okay.
So just to make sure, is Crystal the best name to call you as we talk?
It is.
Okay.
Only name I have.
All right, cool. So, Crystal, what would you like to talk about today?
I contacted you because I am wanting to become a content creator
Okay.
on Twitch and wanted to start streaming.
Okay.
And I got really, really excited when you partnered with the people who were doing the Jackbox party packs
Mm-hmm.
and offered the whole bundle. So I got extremely excited when I was able to purchase the whole bundle, and I felt that that would be a way for me to get into some content creation on Twitch
Yeah.
to try to draw an audience in. And my nervousness at this point is actually doing it. The self-confidence issues of being on cam, not being on cam, doing this and sticking to a schedule, all of these sort of things started floating through my head when I thought about becoming a content creator on Twitch. And I reached out to you and said, okay, I need your help with at least calming all these thoughts that are going through my head on the on that side of it. I also have tech issues, all kind of other things that I'm working through setting it up, but
Mm-hmm.
you came and said, okay, well, I can possibly help you on this side. So I'm more than grateful, to get any insight you have on this side of it.
Awesome. Okay. And so can you tell me a little bit about what the nervousness, like sort of like where the nervousness comes from in terms of, like you said, like getting started and like sticking to a schedule? Like what happens if you don't do those things?
That I don't know, but I know I'm first of all a methodical scheduler.
Mm-hmm.
I put everything into a box, and I've kind of been like that for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is having been in the military, but even with them, they don't stick to a schedule. They just call it hurry up and wait, because they tell you a time to be there, and then you wait 45, 2 hours later for
I
them
see.
to actually do something. But for me, I'm a scheduler. So I'm the type of person that would be there 15 minutes early and wait for you versus you sitting there going, are you coming? Are you going to be here?
Right.
When are you coming? So I want to try to be that person because I overthink things, and I want to be that person for my viewers and be able to set a solid schedule. But my work schedule won't even allow that because I'm looking at a schedule weekly to find out when I have to work.
Yeah.
And so that makes it extremely, extremely difficult for me. Like all the schedule I have right now takes me until Tuesday of the following week, and we're sitting on a Saturday right now. So I only know when I'm working until Tuesday, and I'm hoping I'll come in within the next day or two and find out the next week worth of schedule. So that's part of my issue.
Okay, gotcha. Well, so like one sort of like just like solid like piece of advice that I can give is that there are a lot of streamers that stream that their full-time job makes it so that they can't set like I stream like every Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. But there are lots of streamers that can't necessarily do that because their work schedule isn't as set as mine is. And I used to have a job like that too, where I had to sort of like work around my work schedule in terms of streams. And so what a lot of streamers will do is that, like, because like you had mentioned, you get like a week in advance, like you get your schedule a week in advance. What you can do is, instead of setting like a set schedule forever, you can set a set schedule for the week. So like once you get your work schedule, you can say like, okay, like here's what I'm going to do for this week. And you like announce that to your community. And then like I have no doubt, Crystal, that like once you set that schedule, once you get your work schedule and you set that schedule for yourself, that you'll stick to it, because that's just the kind of person that you are. So yeah, like that's sort of like a real easy like box that you can check of like, I can just like make a weekly schedule and therefore still be really consistent, even though I can't necessarily have like a forever schedule because of my work.
And that helps because I see streamers who don't necessarily set a schedule, and they even start a stream and you don't even know how long their stream is going to go.
Right.
It could be 2 hours, it could be 12 hours. And you're like, well, I want to commit to these people, but I don't have 12 hours to sit and watch their stream. Totally. And watch them play Mario or watch them, play music. So that was part of my thing. I wanted to be consistent, kind of like what I noticed you're doing. You may slip in one little extra every so often, but when people come in, they know, hey, I'm committing XYZ number of hours to this, and then I can move on with my day.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thinking I was going after, watching some of the streamers, because they had a lot more consistency and a lot more activity during their stream when people knew how long they were going to be there. Now, don't get me wrong, people do the special 12-hour, charity streams or 24-hour streams, but I've seen some that consistently you come in and you're like, how long are you going? I don't know. Till I get hungry. And so you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it makes it a little difficult to commit to them. So.
Sure. Yeah. And Crystal, one thing that, I don't know, just sort of from a content creator perspective, like that I worry about is that I think that a lot of content creators will start out streaming like for fun, and they'll have a lot of fun with it. And then this sort of like serious mindset gets in their head, like all of a sudden like they start seeing some success and they're like, oh, like maybe I could make something out of this. And then so they start to like really invest in their content, and then a strange thing happens where like the return on their investment actually starts to go down. Like they actually start to see like less success. And so as you're just starting out, Crystal, like I'll just give you a heads up, like Twitch is it's a tough game. Like it's a tough world to sort of like build something out of. And so I just want to sort of like encourage you to like start out like just going in it for fun, and one of the things that I hear a lot is that like people will be like, okay, so like I got all the equipment, I got my mic, I got my $10,000 computer, and I got all the things, and I'm thinking of starting in like 6 months, and I'm gonna have like all the overlays and all the emotes ready, and like then they start and like no one shows up and it feels horrible. And so like I would just encourage you to like I think one of the best pieces of advice for like people just starting is like just start. Like just go for it. Just press the go live button, and like it'll be a hot mess, and like it's supposed to be when you start out.
That's what I'm scared of. I don't want to run people off because they're like, what the heck is this? Because there's so much more that they can watch and so much more they can be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But here's the thing, Crystal, like what you're really offering them is not your technological prowess. Like there are definitely streamers out there that like you watch them because like, wow, like technically this is incredible. Like that's not what you're not offering them like pro gameplay. Like what you're offering them is like your special like crystalness, and that's that ultimately like that's what your community is going to show up for, and that's why like when technical difficulties happen, like they are in oh my I can totally understand, like they are a super super frustrating part of content creation, and yet like one, they're an integral part of content creation. Like it's just going to happen. And then two, like your community is always going to stand by you through technical issues because they know that like what they're really there for is you and like the special thing that you have to offer.
You say that, and I like did a test stream and totally freaked out because I was like, okay, we're gonna start the stream, and I'm gonna have Jackbox up and ready in the background, and I'm on the starting soon screen, and Jackbox is blaring
Mm-hmm.
through on the sound, and I'm like, no, I don't have any sound on the screen. Why is it doing? And I went in. Okay, this is already screwed. So I was like, and people were like, great. I'm a great stream or something like that. People were sending me messages, and I'm like, what? People were watching my hot messes, and I didn't even get on the screen. So then it was like, okay, do you go on screen and find somewhere to put yourself, or move yourself around in the Jackbox game you're playing? How do you do it? What do you do? And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh God. So that becomes a whole nother monster, trying to find the right place to be and finding the things to cover the code unless you want to first come, first serve. And it's like, how do I want to do this? That's why I said my mind started becoming overwhelmed. Even though Jackbox is a community game, it became overwhelming because there are even times when you were like, oops, we're redoing this because I showed the code too soon. Oops, I didn't even get in yet. So,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, how am I going to do this? Because again, I'm one of those consistency people. So I'm like, okay, whatever I start with, unless we completely make a change, I want to start with something and have it set. Just like you said, all these people with the emotes ready and da, 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 da. I'm trying to check all these boxes so I can be ready.
Yeah.
And it just seems that the list keeps getting things added onto it. And that's part of what's overwhelming me, that I'm trying to check off a list and I don't feel like I'm having any success because I'm treading water because the list keeps growing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
I think that's
Even people who did Among Us streams were like, oh crap, I got randoms in my lobby because I showed the code. So,
yeah.
I just don't want these things.
Yeah. Yeah. I get you. So first of all, I think that Crystal, I think you're actually really insightful. Like I think you're very sort of like self-reflective, and I think that's awesome. And in terms of like in terms of the technical side of things, like I think that they're definitely like I think GoMan would be a really good resource in the Cock Discord to reach out to, and he may very well be able to walk you through a lot of the technical stuff. He's quite good at that. Um, and then and I know that okay, and so there's like three things. So then the second thing is that that list that you're referring to, Crystal, is always going to be growing. Like even where I'm at, which arguably is still not very far along, but even where I'm at, like my list still grows every day. Like I'm still figuring new things out, still trying new things, and that is actually sort of it is overwhelming, and as you sort of like get into the groove of it, it is actually sort of the joy of content creation, like that like infinite possibility and exploration, like the sort of like playgroundness of content creation is sort of the joy, and that's why I really encourage people to just sort of start and just sort of like dive in head first, and so then the third, which leads into the third thing, which is I have definitely, and I know that you wanted to talk a lot about content creation. So
No, no, no. You go where you need.
if this derailment is like you'd prefer to
No, no.
like stick, let me know. But like I'm curious about this. Like I have noticed, Crystal, sort of a how do I say this? Like a fragility. I think that's the right word. Like a fragility where like when things go wrong, it very easily sort of like tilts you off your game. Do you relate to that?
Some ways, yes. In other ways, no.
Tell me
Um,
about that.
I say I understand what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
and I see on your side where someone may say something, and I'm like, okay, I'll be quiet now. Okay, I'm not going to say anything else. And I think that's where you're thinking the fragility comes from.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a fragility on my side. It's a this is not my community,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't want to say anything to make someone else uncomfortable in a home where I'm a guest.
Hmm.
I can't come into your home and tell everybody that they need to take off their shoes if you're okay with them walking around with them on.
Sure.
Now, if we come to my home and I have all white carpet in my home, then yes, I'm going to say at the door, I got some socks or some slippers for you, but those shoes got to come off.
Yeah.
But when I'm a guest in someone else's home, I don't want to make someone else uncomfortable. And places and homes that I love, I'm very protective of. And your community was very welcoming. So I feel very protected. And that's why I'm quiet, because I'll be one that's quick to defend.
Mm-hmm.
And that may push someone away. Like you said something, you even put up a post in your Discord and said, for the goodness of my community, I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And people immediately jumped you and were like, no, you're not doing this. You're gonna message me right now. And I'm like, hold on, pump your brakes. This is his community. If he decides he wants to do this, check your box, because if you don't want to be here, you can go somewhere else. He's doing this. And so, I have to back up and calm myself down, because I don't want to make anyone else uncomfortable. But that triggered me immediately when I saw all of these attack messages coming at you about you don't know the whole story, message me now, blah, 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 blah. No, that's not what you're going to do, because he works too hard to keep this community wholesome. He works too hard to give us good content and give us a safe place. And he has bad days too. So if you're attacking him on a day that may be a bad day for him, you may throw him off completely and make him say, okay, yeah, I'm not streaming this weekend. Okay, yeah, I'm not giving anybody anything this weekend. They don't want it anyway, because it's easy to fall into someone's head. So I immediately jumped in. So it's not necessarily a fragility, to get back to your original question. It's I know me, and I'm quick fingered and quick tongued, and I end up having to go back and apologize. And so I have tried to reroute myself to keep myself from doing that. And instead of having to always go back and I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, it slipped, I just try to keep from saying anything at all, which isn't necessarily good either. But I have not found that proper middle ground.
Hmm.
And so right now I'm either on one side of the scale going, "Ah," or I'm sitting in the corner so quiet you don't even know I'm there. And I did that as a kid too, where I literally rode with people and they were supposed to drop me off and they were like, oh my God, I forgot she was in the car. Okay, we're gonna turn her we're gonna turn around. We gotta take her home. I'm like, yeah, I was just sitting here, waiting for you to make the turns and get to my stop, and you never did. So, okay. And it's just been one of those things, and I have yet to find a middle ground.
Hmm.
Um, I have gotten better with it, but not where at all where I want to be. Which is why even when you started talking about tantras and being an outside person, doing some life coaching, I'm not a doctor, I'm just on the outside and can help you. I was like, oh my God, that's for me, because he's someone on the outside. And I basically did this because I know that there are a lot of other people who may be thinking about content creation, have all this flying around in their heads. So I said, even though I'm not one that's bold with speaking on camera or being the center of anything, I wanted to have the time to talk with you. And if this helps your content and helps someone else, then by all means, I'm here for it.
Hmm. Well, first, I just want to say, like, I appreciate that. That's incredibly sweet. That I hear what you're saying. That you're saying um, when I'm a guest in another person's home, like I want to be respectful. Like I don't want to.
I want to be a good guest.
I want to be a good guest. I don't want to cause any problems. So and then also the other side of that, which is that and when I'm a guest in someone's home and like I really feel at home as a guest in that person's home, like daggers come out if
You walk with the shoes on
if
their carpet. Get your butt back to the door.
Right,
And get
right.
home.
Yeah, and I love that. So I hear all that, and then the other part that I think I need some clarification on is like, so then what happens with when it's your house? So like on your stream, like you were saying, like when you started and like Jackbox went wrong, you're like, oh no, like I gotta cut it off.
No, that was just because of the technical side of it, not necessarily a freak out moment. It was just I thought I had the tech side of it set up properly, and this is not. So if it's already just on the starting Zoom screen and it's already some glitch or something that's not set up properly, I need to go back and look at this and make sure that it is set up properly before I try to test this again. And I found that when I went in, there was no save button. So things that I thought that had saved were not saved. And then everyone I'm going to ask for help is, oh no, don't use this one, use this one. Oh no, don't use this one, use. So I'm literally at the head swim moment. Oh no, I never use that. I use this, and don't use this. And you can't do it from your computer because you're going to need your phone for your camera, and you're going to need another computer for your chat. And I'm like, wait, you're okay. I just want to breathe. I thought you just hit go live and your stuff. That's when I was like, oh my God, this is way more than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And that's what overwhelmed me, like I said, because that list kept growing. Most of it is technical stuff, I will admit. But then the other part of it is, are you worthy? Who would actually come and see you? Who would actually come and hang out with you? And I have hung out in communities and I have gained support. I mean, I have literally gained followers enough to become affiliate and have yet to stream a full stream. So I feel like that there are people who will come. It's just, like you said, I have to get in there and do. And that's getting over your own nerves. And I've seen some people who literally even were like, I got to drink, and they drink while they're streaming because they're like, this is too new to me. I'm too frazzled. I don't want to be that person. I'm trying to set a tone that I want to keep. And, if in fact things do get changed, because like you said, we learn and grow with each stream, we learn and grow with each day, then that's fine. But I see some streamers who have redemptions to take shots and redemptions for this, and they're literally sloppy by the end of the stream because they're trying to please their audience with all of this content. And you're sitting on the other side of it like, you idiot, just stop. You're still a human at the end of the day. If someone redeems 50 freaking shots on a stream and you can't, just cut it off. Just stop. Don't just keep overdoing yourself. Like one person has something for bits where they chug the beer that they're drinking. And people will just keep redeeming and keep redeeming. He's like, okay, I got to go get another beer. Okay, going to get another beer. Going to get another. You're supposed to be streaming for 3 hours because you have to work tomorrow. And you're literally... by the time you get off the stream, I want to set up a community that's wholesome and fun without having to.
Okay, sorry about that. So my computer crashed. So we sort of left off on you, like you were talking about how like some streamers like sort of like will almost like it sounded like you were saying like they'll almost like hurt themselves in order to like provide content, and like you don't want to have to do that. Like you want to create sort of like a wholesome community. And did you want to say anything else about that?
Just want to set a precedent. It's the basic last thought on that. And your stream has helped me in that way in a lot of regards. Some things I'm taking note of, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to quite do that. But some things are very helpful as far as knowing what to do, especially like the polls and things like that, because I'm very indecisive when I have people from all over everywhere. So
Me too.
That's a tremendous help because that allows them to have a voice. So I love that. Cool.
I wanna come back to this thing that you said about like, am I worth it? Like, am I worth like people showing up to my stream for? Because I just feel like there's something juicy there. Can you talk to me a little bit more about that?
I think it's just kind of a self-worth thing.
Yeah.
On the personal side, that, in your head you have all these voices saying, well, why would people really sit for an hour, sit for whatever amount of time and play Jackbox with you when there are so many other channels on Twitch alone that they could watch, when there's so many other things they could be doing. So that's just kind of some of the voices that are chiming in the back of the head. And I had people, you better be on camera. And I'm like, well, that might run people away. And then me not being on camera might run people away. So I'm like, I don't know. You've
Yeah.
seen some content creators that use the whatever those little filters are, where they're either animals or they're anime, and the
Sure.
mouth
Yeah,
and the mouth
VTubers.
moves, right. The mouth moves when they talk. And I'm like, well, that still allows them to have something on stream, but not necessarily the person. So I'm like, should I think about adding that in? What do you do?
Yeah. And Crystal, where do you think that voice that you were talking about that says like, why would people want to watch you? Why would people want to, well, when there's so many other streamers on Twitch? Where do you think that voice comes from?
That's just a self-worth voice that I've had all my life. Um, as far as me not feeling worthy. And that's, issues that I have never been able to fully work through. Have been to counseling in spurts
Mm-hmm.
throughout my life, but stuff I haven't been able to work through. And days turn into weeks, which turn into years, which turn into decades, and you still have these same issues. And I'm one of those people, if it happened yesterday or 10 years ago, if we bring it up, I'm going to have the same feelings about it. I mean, it could be elementary school. You stepped on my foot and didn't apologize. So, and we're like, Crystal, you're okay. Let's just say, Crystal, you're 50. I'm not, but it's like, Crystal, you're 50. That was elementary school. Really? That's like forever ago. Leave it alone. But my head pulls it back up. And so, like I said, when one voice started, then another one was like, yeah, what he said. And so then you got this whole crowd of people in your head, like, yeah, why hit go live? Nobody's gonna show up. Nobody's gonna be there. You're gonna be there talking to yourself, waiting for some people to come and play Jackbox with you. And then you're trying to do Jackbox, which means you have to have people in order to have content. Because if you don't have people, you don't have a game to play. And you're just sitting there on the screen waiting for people to join. So why would you do this to yourself? And I'm like, all of these thoughts come into mind. Why would you choose Jackbox? Why would you do this? So
Yeah, Crystal, that sounds really overwhelming. Like,
and it is. And
y-
that's the very reason why I'm still sitting right where I am in the process of starting up.
yeah, because I mean, like, even like take away all the technical stuff and all the stuff that you do actually have to do for stream. Then on top of that, you have like 10 million voices in your head saying like, "Hey, Crystal, do this. Hey, Crystal, do that. Hey, Crystal, why aren't you doing this? Hey, Crystal, you're not worth this. Hey, Crystal, you're not worth that." Like that sounds incredibly overwhelming and stressful.
And it's not a multiple personality, so don't get
No,
me
no, no, no,
wrong.
no.
I don't like have names for
We
them, like
all
John said this.
we all
you
we
know.
all we all have voices in our head. No shame.
Mm-hmm.
Um um And so I'm curious, like in the spurts of counseling that you went through, Crystal, like
Mm-hmm.
what was that like for you?
Um, it it was okay to talk,
Hmm.
but it felt kind of cold because these people were just counselors. You had an hour with them or however long, and they're sitting there taking notes, and they're like, "Okay, the timer went off. Time's up. See you next week." It was never like a personal relationship building type of thing. So it just felt like I was just talking. I never felt like I got any resolution to it. And the thing about it is, I don't know if they still do it today because I haven't been in counseling in a while. But as soon as they hear a trigger that says they need to prescribe medication, they're like, "Yep, we need to give you this. Here, go get this pill and take this." And I'm like, that's not what I want, because one counselor did that, and what they gave me like made me totally numb.
Hmm.
I Everything deadened in my head, but at the same time, I had no feeling. So literally, like the way I describe it is, you could fall down the stairs in front of me, and I'd be like, "Oh, he fell and broke his neck." I wouldn't be like, "Oh my God," but I felt nothing at all, and I didn't want to feel that way.
Yeah.
That's not how I wanted to walk around feeling. Because if you're my friend and you fall down the stairs and break your neck, I want to have some sort of reaction and feeling about it, because we're supposed to.
Yeah.
But the medication was causing me to not feel at all. I seen it, I was there in the moment, but I couldn't react to it.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, Crystal, is that like there were a couple of things going on. The first was that like you didn't feel like that there was a whole lot of like actual feedback from the people that you were talking to. Like it was just you talking for like an hour. And then the second part is like, while you were talking for that hour, like if they heard like a specific like trigger word or whatever, they would be like, okay, drugs, here's the drug that you need to take. And then they would like send you on your merry way instead of like,
This will fix that. Here you go.
right, right. Yeah. And so like one of the things that I sort of preach a lot, Crystal, is that like finding a good therapist is a lot about sort of like it's a lot like dating. Like you have to sort of like date around and like find somebody that works for you. And so I think that from what you've been telling me about like how overwhelming these voices are, and I just think that doing this kind of work where like we do go back and we look at like that, just hypothetically, like that person that like stepped on your toe, and like talking about that and sort of like working through that for you. Not like you don't have to like go back to that person but like, you stepped on my toe 30 years ago, but like just sort of working through that for you and like giving you some resolution about that, so that you don't feel like, because a lot of the time, like just like using that example as that story as an example, like a lot of the times what will happen is like that person will step on our toe and we naturally will be like, oh, like I should say something or do something to like make myself exist, make them know that I exist. And then we're sort of like taught in a weird way that we shouldn't do that. We're taught that we like sort of shouldn't exist. And so then like we learn that behavior, and then over time like we go through life with that behavior, but there's still that like innate part of us that is like, no, like I should exist.
But you hurt me. You hurt me. It matters. I
And
felt
so
something.
then like those voices start to like populate in your head of like of like sort of both sides. The side that's like, no, like I should heckin' exist, and then also the sides that says like, no, like sit down, shut up, and listen. Like you're not worthy. You shouldn't exist. And so I just I don't think that you should have to live that way. I think that there's, well, I think that one of the like, that phrase, I don't know why I feel like you'll know this phrase, Crystal, but I feel like you will. You know that phrase like, the greatest trick the devil ever played is convincing the world he didn't exist? Do you know that expression? I feel like the greatest trick that whoever, I don't know, whoever played was convincing people that like they have to live like that they have to live with all these voices like running around in their head. And I strongly believe that you don't. Because like I said about streaming, Crystal, like you do have a lot to offer. Like you have value and you have something incredibly unique that you have to offer. And I think that that those voices can hold you back. And so like and make it miserable for you. And so like I would love to try to help or try to connect you with people who can help to sort of like tame those voices a little bit and sort of like, I don't know, reintegrate into like one mind, so to speak. Does that make sense?
hmm It's just hard for me because even on Twitch, I notice people who aren't very boisterous,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of get overlooked. So you either have to be really loud in a good or a bad way to be seen, one way or the other, or you're just kind of there.
Hmm.
They see 500 people watching their stream, but only those five that are like, "Wah, wah," are the ones that kind of really get noticed. And so I'm like, well, if you don't have a whole, and with Twitch, that's the other part of it. People feel like, and I'm one of them, if you don't have a whole lot to contribute, I'll say financially, most streamers don't really know. They pay attention to those people that gift all those subs, those people that give all those biddies, those people that drop those big donations. And you see commands and all of these things, emotes with that person's name on it. You start seeing these things show up and they talk to these people and they're like, oh, they weren't here today. But when you're not one of those people, I'm sorry, I can't come into your channel and drop 10,000 videos. I can't afford to do that. So I'm just one of those non-existent people. My little $5 sub, okay, you know, it's just there. I got the little badge by it, but hey, okay. That's another reason why I said some of the things that you do I greatly appreciate, because even when people try to discourage you from it, you're like, nope, that's what I want to do. I'm gonna do it. Well, why does it say raid when I just host a stream? Because that's what I want. Any other questions? You're like, because that's what I'm gonna do. Any other questions? And why do you twerk for everything? We're not here for the twerk. We want the game. No, that is my title. That is my honor, and that is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
And so that's why I said a lot of times I look at streamers and I learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that to say, please don't take the people that sit back in your community as though they're not watching or not listening and taking it in and not learning. I'm watching the chat. I may not be putting something in it every few seconds like some, but I am listening and watching, and it helps even with the people who I do it a lot with. I'm like, I know they get tired of seeing these same emotes keep floating across the screen because you only have, so many. And if you're watching somebody for 2 hours and it's a DJ per se, the only emotes that fit would be something dancing or something dealing with music. Well, there are only so many of them. Mm-hmm. So they're going to keep recycling. So I'm learning, and I'm trying to learn to be a better me, IRL, and I'm trying to learn to be a better community participant on Twitch, with the streamers that I'm watching, trying to learn to be a better mod for the streamers that I work with, and also trying to take it all in from both sides to be the best content creator, and the best streamer that I can possibly be. And so once again, I reached out to get any sort of insight or any sort of takeaways to help dull some of these voices that are probably, irrational in even being there, but I'm allowing them to be louder because they're those people that came in and dropped 10,000 biddies. So they're like, in my head and making themselves known. So that's what I'm trying to do to help myself calm some of it.
Yeah. And do you feel noticed, Crystal?
You mean anywhere? In what way?
Yeah, I think I'm asking sort of in general.
A lot I don't.
Yeah.
But I think it's purposeful because, again, in my head, I don't feel like I have value to add. So I'm not that person that walks into the party and is like, oh, we can get started. I'm here now. I'm the one that's over in the corner, sipping my drink quietly. And I'm like, oh, we had an awesome time. And some people were like, you were there? Mm-hmm, I was there. I saw you dipping on the floor over there. I saw you. I just wasn't out there dipping with you, but I saw you. Yeah. And so, I mean, I think I do that everywhere, and I'm trying to gain the confidence to not be so quiet and standoffish. Because when I say that, people are like, no, you're not. And yes, I am. That speak when I'm spoken to person who sits back and listens otherwise.
And so, are you that person because you feel like you have to be, or are you just naturally like a quiet person?
I don't know. I guess most of my life has made me have to be that way.
Okay.
Even in career choices, it's not been what I want to do. It's been, okay, we'll take you, type of thing. So career choices have been, okay, we'll take you. And I'm like, okay, well, thank you. You're the only one who even put me on that draft list. Okay, I'm in. So, I mean, again, it's something that I'm working the whole spectrum to make better. And it's sad to say that, I've lost so many years not being able to do it. But, it's never too late, is all I can say. I'm just working to try to be better every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually really sort of, I don't know, like happy to hear you say that like it's never too late, because I agree. And like I think that it would be very easy to get lost in hopelessness. Like it sounds really, really hard. The idea that
I'm fighting,
yeah, it sounds really,
fighting
really
not to.
hard. The idea that like feeling like you're going through life and like everyone is like, okay, like we'll take you, like we'll like it's almost like they're like deigning to like w- instead of like you sort of like asserting like, because and I actually wrote this down earlier, Crystal, and it's sort of like coming back around, which things often
Hmm.
do, and I'm happy about it. Is that I'm
Hmm.
hearing this conflict about when you talk about the value that you want to provide on your stream, like it's incredibly strong, Crystal, and like also like by the way, incredibly good instincts, like things that make a lot of sense and that are really smart and that a lot of content creators have to stream for a long time before they sort of like realize and sort of like get the hang of. And then I also hear this other side of like, but then like people will come into stream and be like, you need to have a camera, like you need to do this, you need to do that, and then you're like, okay, like I need to do that. And so it's really, I can hear the voices, like I can see them in the way that you're talking. um
Hmm.
and so I really do think that looking at and working on how to start sort of because okay, let me give you a little spiel. So my understanding of what those voices are, Crystal, is that those voices are parts of yourself that were sort of shut down or like traumatized in some way throughout your life. And when that happens, that part of yourself sort of gets frozen in time and sort of continues to exist within you and behave in the way that it did at that time. And so a lot of people have these, parts of themselves and they see them sort of as like enemies or as like things that they have to fight against or as like monsters, but really like they're just like really hurt parts of you that
Hmm.
never got a chance to be seen or be noticed. And Crystal, if I've noticed anything about you, it's that you're actually really good at noticing the unnoticed because you've been one your whole life. You're actually really good at making people who like don't feel recognized feel seen. And so one of the things that I would encourage you to do, Crystal, is to start doing that for yourself. And I think that one of the best ways to start doing that is to sort of like externalize it. So like start seeing these parts of yourself as like external children that like you want to like take care of and help. Because I think that if you do that, you're gonna excel. You're gonna do amazing at it. Because like that's one of your strengths. I think that you're an incredible caretaker, Crystal, just from the little bit that I've talked to you. What do you think about that?
It's something different that I have never heard anyone even suggest. I'll say that. And at the same time, it's kind of overwhelming because it's
Yeah.
so many instances. And I'm one of those, I do know about myself that, if I don't feel that my feelings have been validated, they become another one of those children.
Yep.
Because then I question whether I should have even felt that way.
Right.
And just another quick story. I'm going on a trip, and we're in line to enter, and a heavy person steps back onto my foot.
Mm.
The person didn't even acknowledge, said nothing. Literally, you put all your weight on my foot. So I take my shoe off, I look at my big toe, and it is literally black. black, like, yeah, where the toenail, yeah. But the person who's with me was like, well, it was just a mistake. Leave it alone. Let it go. I'm like, no, but my toe is like hurting. But again, that was another one of those things. It's like, well, why should it matter? It was a mistake. But for me, I'm still today living with the physical ramifications of that, and that toenail growing and messing up and having to grow again because that person did that.
Yeah.
But because when I tried to say something with them to them, I was invalidated. It was just a mistake. Leave it alone. Then it starts the battle in me again. And that's just an example of all of the type of battles that I go through where there is physical evidence that, it affected me, but you have these other voices saying, but it was just a mistake. They didn't mean to do it.
Yeah.
Leave them alone. And I'm always fighting that because rationally I have the right to say something, but do you, it's that.
Yeah.
And
Crystal, the word that's coming to mind as you're talking is gaslighting. Like it's almost like, and I'm sure that originally it came from an external source, and like, if we continue to work together, like we can delve into that. But it really does sound like you've gotten to the point where you were constantly gaslighting yourself, where like you're having like feelings and emotions come up, and all of those little voices are saying like, no, like you shouldn't feel that way. Why would you feel that way? That's dumb that you feel that way, and all of these different things. And so like just to sort of like, I don't know, like delve into like that specific story, there, like, yes, I'm sure that it was a mistake. I'm sure that he didn't step on your toe on purpose. And just because someone makes him, just because like the intent wasn't to harm, doesn't mean that they didn't harm you. And
didn't do it.
Right.
Yes.
And so like when one of the really valuable lessons that I learned was that like when you apologize, when one apologizes, it's not because you did something wrong necessarily. It's because you hurt someone. And so you're apologizing that you hurt them, whether it was intentional or not. And so like from the other perspective, like when you come to someone and you say like, hey, you stepped on my toe, it really hurt. That's perfectly legitimate to say. And if they say, oh my God, like it was an accident and I didn't mean to, you can say like, that's, I totally understand that. And like my toe still really, really hurts. And that like, so like it's this idea of like holding people accountable with compassion. Like you're saying, I totally understand that you didn't do this on purpose, but like you did really hurt me. So like, can we address that? And then from there, like, then you can have a conversation with the person. And I wonder if, especially like, I think it's tricky because I think that one of the things that you're going to have to really sort of look out for, Crystal, is you're going to have to like watch your environment. Like I think one of the things that you may fall into is you may sort of have a natural inclination to go toward people that are going to do this to you, that are going to sort of gaslight you and be like, well, it was just an accident. I shouldn't have to apologize. It was just an accident. And so like the more that you can sort of find people that are going to like validate that experience. Like if I stepped on your toe, I would immediately be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. The more that you can sort of find those people so that when you do come to them and you say, you stepped on my toe, it really hurt. I know you didn't do it on purpose, but it really hurt. And they validate that experience for you. I think that what's going to happen is those voices are going to disappear. Like,
So, honestly, in this story, the person that did it was unknown. The person that was in my head was the friend that was like, oh, it was just a mistake. Leave him alone.
Yeah.
And they were trying to shush me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm going, it didn't happen to you. It happened to me, and you're not the one limping at this point.
Right.
So, in any case, I'm trying to get to that point. But just like you said, I'm the one that tends to cling to and get to know and form relationships with that type of person, and I'm always the one that ends up hurt.
Yeah.
Because I end up with more of those voices in my head while that person is moving on with their life. or I'm the person that they can always come to for support, moral, financial, whatever, and then I need them and I can't get a return text or an answer to a phone call.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So Crystal, this is what I would call a blind spot, in that
mm-hmm.
like a really good example is like people that, I mean, it's kind of the same example actually, but people that have been in abusive relationships a lot in their life will naturally go into more abusive relationships because it's what feels familiar to them. And then like if they happen to get into a healthy relationship, like it's super uncomfortable for them. They don't know what to do because it's complete. They've never felt that before. It's very foreign. And so like a lot of times they'll actually
want something.
yeah, a lot of times they'll actually like sabotage those healthy relationships because because they're like, no, this is weird. Something bad is going to happen. This isn't right. I need to go back to what I know. And the truth is that blind spots are exactly what coaching is for, because you can only see so much from one perspective. In this case, like your own. And so then having like another perspective, and like this is a lot of what I do with some of my other clients as well, where like we've identified like a certain blind spot, and so then that person will come to me and say like, hey, here's the situation, like in your case, like it might be something like, I feel like I shouldn't say anything because blah blah blah, and I'm like, no, Crystal, like you have every right to say something in this situation. And so like I'm just sort of like a external pair of eyes to sort of like provide insight and help you sort of start to see that blind spot for yourself, so that then, like as you go through life, the goal is that eventually, like, like my goal is to make myself irrelevant. Eventually, like, you don't need me anymore and you can see that blind spot all for yourself, and then you don't have that problem anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so and the Tantra Talks channel in the Discord is something that this is really good for, where if you run into a problem just like at a random part of your day and we don't happen to be talking or whatever, like you can just pop it in there, and then like I or someone in the community can be like, oh no, like you have every right to say something. And I think that the reason that I'm bringing this up is because I think that it actually would double as like an exercise for you, because right now you don't want to say anything because like you don't want to like offend the person in the house or whatever. And I think that like I kind of want to be offended by you, Crystal. Like I kind of want to like box that game. Like I want to, I don't know how to say this. I want that line to be crossed so that you can experience what it's like when like there's a healthy conversation about that line. Does that make sense?
And it's not necessarily targeted toward you. I'm
No, I
just
know.
saying, community, period.
Yeah. No,
You
I
know.
know. So I absolutely understand that it's not targeted toward me at all. One of the things that happens in coaching and like therapy and that sort of thing is that
Mm-hmm.
you will like play out dynamics, and this isn't conscious. Like this doesn't happen on purpose necessarily. It just sort of naturally happens, where you will like play out dynamics that exist within your real life with the coach or with the therapist or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And good coaches will like catch that, acknowledge that, and sort of like work through that situation as it's happening. Bad coaches will sort of get sucked in and start like becoming the perpetrator. So like for instance, like if something started playing out between us where where like you were having feelings about something that like I had done but that like wasn't necessarily my fault, if like a bad coach would start like gaslighting you, would be like, well, I didn't do that on purpose. And a good coach would be like, okay, so like this is an excellent example of like the exact situation we were talking about, and then work through it with you. And so then you can start to feel what it feels like to have that experience. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Questions?
I don't have any other, just all that. My only request is that, if you know of any tips I can use, or if anyone else who may end up watching this later, who wants to start streaming, so that we can kind of calm these voices to go ahead and hit that go live button. You know, even if, because I know you're a list writer and you like writing things down and making documents. So if there's, some little short list that you could come up with, to help ease some of those anxieties, it would be tremendously helpful, just to kind of steer things, of course, from my personal, because I know I have issues, had them all my life, back to, the streaming side, so that I can try to calm some of these voices to actually become one of those little small peons, that joins the Twitch world.
I'm one of those
And
peons, right along with you.
so, I see streams all the time and pop into them that may only have one or two viewers, and they're still there pegging along, doing what they do, and so I try to jump in and encourage them so that they'll keep going, because what they're doing matters,
Yeah.
even if only one or two people may be sitting there watching it. Whether or not those two people are bots or actual humans doesn't matter. The content they are providing matters. So I try to let them know that.
And do you
And
feel
I
that?
may not be able to hang out all the time, but as much as I can, if I have a restless night or.
All right, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what I'm gonna have to start saving for a new computer or something. That's terrifying. Okay, so the video left off, and you were just talking about how like you will go into like people with like one or two viewers in their stream and like and support them. And
my request of you was, if you had some tips for us first time people or new streamers to help us calm the voices, if you could like create it or post it, even make a video yourself, on YouTube about it, whatever it may be. If you have any thoughts that could help us, it would be tremendously helpful, especially for me. I can only speak for myself, but I know other people would probably watch it as well.
Yeah. Let me think about it for a second.
Because I know you've been doing it for years, so you're kind of seasoned at it by now. But
yeah,
it's like, ooh, thinking of startup thoughts. Ooh, wow.
So
I know that would be a pull.
Here's the couple of thoughts that I have right off the bat, and if more occur, I'll definitely hit you up with them. The first couple of thoughts is, one, like there's no need to reinvent the wheel, and I think that you already have good instincts on this. You've already talked about how like you are learning from other streamers, and I think that is a big thing that a lot of people miss. And so I think that it's great that you already sort of have that instinct. And so like, reaching out to someone like Go Man, or, someone that you feel comfortable with, and that might be, strong on the technical side, I think would be really great, because I think that a lot of the fear right now is around the technical side. And then as for the more sort of psychological side, which is more sort of my expertise.
What we're doing.
Right.
That's the list I'm talking about, to quiet these voices.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that, strangely enough, Crystal, I think that the list is actually only going to make the voices louder. Because like you said, the list is just going to keep growing. It's just going to keep growing. And I think that the voices are sort of responsible for that. Like, the reason that list is for, like, you could spend years on that list and you will still have more things to add before you're really ready. And so I think that the piece of advice that I could give would be that, like, to go in ready for, like, the barrage of voices. Like, go in knowing, like, maybe your list, instead of, like, what you need to do, is that you write down, like, I'm going to start streaming, and I know that all of the voices in my head are going to be heckin' screaming at me the whole time. And I'm just going to, like, I'm going to hear them, I'm going to notice them, and, like, every one of the tantras, I always tell people to notice something. So I think for you, Crystal, like, I would notice those voices and acknowledge them and say, I hear you, and I'm going to keep doing my thing. I think it's actually, to sort of draw a parallel, it's similar to what you talk to me about in terms of like when people in stream say like, oh, like, you should do this. And I'm like, thanks, I'm not going to do that. Same idea of like, thanks voices, I hear you. And I'm not going to stop my stream. I'm going to keep streaming. But your stream is a horrible mess and no one wants to watch you. Thanks voices, I hear you. And I'm going to keep going. And it's going to be heckin' hard. And you may totally fail at it. You may like the voices are too powerful and you're like, I gotta shut down stream. But if you can just notice it, what it's going to do is it's going to like detach you a little bit from those voices. Because right now those voices are just like consuming you, right? Like they just take you over. And so if you can notice it, what that means is that somehow, in some small little way, you're looking at it with a little bit of perspective, okay? And every time you can do that, even if it's just a little centimeter, you're going to gain a little bit more control over those voices. So even if you go into it with that mindset and the voices are too powerful and you end up stopping stream, when you stop stream, if you can say to yourself, like, I noticed the voices, like I heard them, I noticed them, and they were just too powerful this time. Even that is a win. And the more that you do that, I think that the closer you'll get to like actually being able to start stream. Okay.
Like I said, I've only done it a couple of times.
Yeah.
Some of it was just setup stuff, from an Apple product, because you can stream from your iPad, you can stream. So some of it was just setup stuff. But then, like I said, when I actually did the OBS and blah, 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 and tried to stream, then the voices came in then. So like, just like we were talking about, when I didn't have the tech side right, I was like, okay, so why would you change from the going live stream and actually start talking if things are already screwing up? You're gonna make it worse. It's not gonna work. It's not. So
there's those voices.
And
yeah.
So okay, we're done. And that was literally like a 5-minute stream, less than 5 minutes. And I was like, okay, no. So even some people after that, because for whatever reason, however I had it set up, Twitch recorded the video and kept it. So people went back and they were like, oh, so I see you did a testing stream. I was like, oh crap. Okay, delete. Where's that video? Delete. And, I went running around looking for it to get it off there. So now it's gone. But I get what you're saying, and I appreciate that, because I have so many notebooks of lists of things. Now some of the lists are good, what
Totally.
you want to achieve by a certain age, or what you want to do by blah blah blah. Those lists are good, but
Totally.
I have so many lists of things that, like you said, it can become overwhelming.
Yeah.
To the point where you cripple yourself and you don't want to do it because you look at what you have on paper.
Yeah.
And I even stopped that with work tasks, because I was even so bad, I was going to Facebook and I was like, okay, the to-do list for this week has 43 items. Let's get started, and I had to stop myself from making all these lists and doing that. And so once again, because that was my natural inclination, when it came to this, okay, let's start another list, of things we need to do to make this happen. And so it wasn't intentional, it was instinctual. So I get what you're saying, that making the list only makes the voices louder.
Yeah.
And anything you say would add to that list and make them even louder. So I'm going to try to stray away from the list and just do it and learn as I go.
Yeah.
And hope that people come with the right intentions and none of the hate raid stuff comes, and that the people who actually come are there to support and will be there even through the glitches and the mess ups.
Yeah. And just remember that, Crystal, like, you already have like such a good idea of what you want your community to be, and I think that is something that a lot of streamers that start out don't think about, of what they want their community to be. And so like don't let the voices say like, oh, like you need this person, when you know that they're not a good fit. Notice when those voices are telling you like you need this person because like you're not going to get anyone else. But like the crystal now knows like, no, like this person is not a good fit for my community. And you can have, again, like you can have a really compassionate conversation with that part of you, with that younger self that's saying you need this because you don't have any value, you have to keep this person. You can say like, I hear what you're saying and I know why you feel that way,
But
and
they still gotta go.
they gotta go, and like that's not the case anymore. Like we don't have to live that way anymore, baby, you know. um okay, so the last thing that I want to do to sort of wrap up is uh I I always like to give, since you know you're starting out as a content creator, I always like to give people the opportunity to sort of like shout out any place that they'd like people to follow or check out. So is there any, and you don't have to, but you can. Is there any place that you would like people to like follow you or anything like that?
Well, right now I don't have any real content made. I had made the Instagram and the TikTok and all of these things. And of course, when people went in, your accounts got locked because people stole passwords. So right now, the only thing I'm gonna try to focus on to begin with is Twitch.
That's great.
And I even had people fussing about, my username. Well, why's your real name on there? And da da da. I was like, but it's just me. It's just me, Crystal. So, I mean, why would I need to change that and come up with a pseudonym just for Twitch? No, my name is Crystal, and that's going to be me. So
Yeah, it's
I
not like
even
somebody could
changed it.
search crystal and find your last, like there are so many crystals in the world, it's fine.
Right. So I was like, and so that's the only thing I'm gonna try to focus on right now is getting the Twitch side straight,
Yeah.
and then once people come into the Twitch side, like you said, and they're in the community and start making clips and doing these other things, then I can branch out to these other avenues
I think that's a
and
great
start
idea.
creating content for them. But I don't want to overwhelm myself trying to create everything all at one time.
Yeah. And I just want to reinforce, Crystal, that like you're really competent. Like everything that you're talking about, like the now Crystal is talking about is really smart. So like don't let those voices fool you. You know what you're talking about. Um and then oh yeah, so then the Twitch handle is twitch.tv/just
Just
underscore me underscore
me,
Crystal, right?
Crystal. Yes.
Cool. Yeah. All right, and then the last thing that I usually do is I just sort of like give like a little summary of like what we talked about, both for you and for
Mm-hmm.
anyone who watches, and then you
Mm-hmm.
know like a little shameless plug about the tantras. Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool. Um, so we started out talking about this sort of like nervousness of getting started, sticking to a schedule, all the sort of like the overwhelmedness of like of content creation, and talked about how you're sort of like a methodical scheduler, and what we sort of came to was that really this is just sort of like a microcosm of what it's like to live your life. That like this sort of pattern shows up everywhere in your life. And the reason that it seems to show up is because it seems, and you know, like we can delve more into this if we continue to work together, Crystal. It seems like throughout your life there have been a lot of situations where you were told like your feelings don't matter. Like you need to swallow your feelings. You need to like sit down, shut up, and listen. And so that created all of these little parts of you that one tell you that, and on the other side are fighting against that and saying like no, like I deserve to be heard. And so it's just this like cacophony of like arguing voices in your head all the time. And so like there whenever something comes out of your mouth, it's accompanied with like all of this like doubt and speculation, and like it's just like incredibly overwhelming. And so what we talked about is like starting to have conversations with those younger parts of yourselves where you sort of treat them like a child, like the sort of child that they are, and like you speak as an adult, the adult that they needed. That instead of saying like sit down, shut up, and listen, says like hey, like I hear you, I know what you're going through, and like this, like things are different now. This is how things are gonna go now. And as you start to do that, interestingly enough, it's not that those voices like disappear. What actually happens is that they actually sort of get integrated into you. Those voices feel heard and feel cared about, and they don't need to speak anymore because they trust you, and they sort of become a part of you. And then ultimately, you know, like your mind is a quieter place, and you feel more sort of like secure in who you are and all that jazz. And so then sort of to draw it back to the content creation side, there is this like conflict that I was hearing between like what you want to create, which again like is very like well thought out, very you have like really good instincts and a really good idea of like the kind of community that you want to make, which is fantastic. And then like but those voices activate anytime someone comes into your stream and is like, oh, like you should do this. And so like finding the distinction and like noticing the distinction between like when that's like helpful advice and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, like I can do that, that's a good idea, I'll integrate that, and when it's just like the voices being activated and you're like, no, like I know what I want for my community and I'm confident in that, and this isn't it, and I have like, you know, affirmation from tech that this is okay, that I can do that this is a good idea. And the more that you sort of do that, and so then like again, to sort of like further that into the streaming, like the like, you know, couple pieces of advice that I gave about just getting started is like, one, don't reinvent the wheel, find somebody that can offer like the technical advice, because you don't need to rediscover that all on your own, if that's not a strength of yours. And so the like Cock Discord is a great place to do that. And then and that'll be like a link in the description for people watching on YouTube and everything. And then for the other side, the psychological side, I would just say start to notice when those voices get activated. And even if you can't have that discussion with those voices right now and sort of like, you know, I don't want to say overcome, but like continue in what you're doing that you know is right. If those voices like overcome you, that's still okay. That will happen. Just the fact that you're starting to notice those voices is going to make a really big difference in what you do. And if you liked this and you'd like to work further, Crystal, the private tantras are paid, but we can continue to work together if you'd like to do that. And anyone watching, same thing. Public tantra is like a one-time like free trial. You can sign up, link in description, and then private tantras are paid after that. And then, you know, if you like the content, like, comment, subscribe, all that sell out of YouTube stuff. And that's it. Anything else that you'd like to close on, Crystal?
Only that this is greatly appreciated.
Good. I'm glad. I the number one reason I do it is to provide value. So I'm glad that it was helpful for you. All right. Bye, Crystal.
Bye-bye.